Explorers, it's your adventure podcast hostess with the mostest, Katie Staples. Join me for travel stories, tips, and tricks to help you explore and create unforgettable memories. Follow me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can be the first to hear new tips. If you tuned in to episode 43, you heard Brad talk all about the first half of his trip to India when he was in Delhi. Now, here's us talking about the second half, which was Dharamshala and the Dalai Lama's temples. Take the plane from Delhi to Dharamshala. I'm saying that correct, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And what was so significant about Dharamshala to you?
Dharamshala is the city closest to McLeod Ganj, which is where the Dalai Lama lives. So that was where I was going to be spending the majority of my time. And I just wanted to soak up as much of that as I could. Stepping off the plane, even though I felt awful, I hadn't slept at this point in a day and a half, just from just being sick, and I'm just tired. But even stepping off the plane in the cool air, it was like in the 40s there when I got off in January, and you have the Himalayas as a backdrop. I'm stretched to think of another experience that affected me as much as stepping off that plane there, because it was a different feel, almost magic is really the only way I know how to describe it.
I believe that you went to some monasteries there too, right?
I did. So after I got a car to my location, I stayed in a little Airbnb. Dupinta and Jupinta were sisters. They ran the Airbnb, and they took really good care of me. So after I got there, I was able to walk to the monastery. I didn't even know I was there because I was just walking. I just wanted to walk the city, and it's a big loop that runs around McLeod Ganj. It's uphill both ways. I don't know how they do that, but it's 800 feet straight up. And I walked a lot of trails in there, and I think the first monastery I actually went to in McLeod Ganj was the Dalai Lama temple. I didn't realize it before I went in. After I got in, I realized, oh, wow, this is where I've been wanting to come the entire time. So I spent some time there that day, and I came back and took a tour the following day. And when I booked the tour, I thought, okay, it's going to be several tourists that are going to be joining us. By the way, not a whole lot of people that look like me there. So it was a little bit of I won't say unnerving, but just kind of odd experience for the attention that you receive. I went on a tour with a gentleman who was actually Hindu, and he bridged a lot of gaps for me between Buddhism and Hinduism, that even though I had so many Indian friends here home, and I've had lots of discussions with them about Hinduism, I'd never bridged that gap. So he sat down with me, and we sat because guess what? I was the only one on the tour. There was no one else. So I got a private tour of the Dalai Lama's temple, and we sat for 3 hours and just talked, and it was fantastic. I felt like that experience was so enriching, that not only the information, but just how personal he made the experience, and just connecting with someone, which is something that's so very valuable to me. There was the Gyoto monastery was a very similar experience in that there was no one there. I mean, the people who lived there, just the temple itself, maybe saw 10 other tourists. So it was very serene and quiet and reflective, and a lot of what I was looking for going to India and going to Dharamshala and McLeod Ganj.
Was there anything in particular, like spiritually, that you were looking for? What was the intention of going here? Because we knew at that point you weren't going to be able to meet the Dalai Lama. And so what was the intent?
Reflection, peace, connection to something that I wanted a little bit more understanding about. And you couple that with basically placing yourself into another culture that you know very little about, how to get around, the cuisine, the general rules, be able to grow in that experience. To me, that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make those connections, because I feel like one of the things in this life is that sometimes we feel like we're separate from each other, and that we're seeking different things, But then there's this wonderful feature on Snapchat. When it first came out, they had this wonderful map feature, and you can click anywhere on the map and see what someone is posting anywhere in the world. And what you see is that people are celebrating birthdays, people are going shopping, people are loving one another. And that's that connected human experience that I was looking for, that I believe exists no matter where you go. Whether you're home 50 miles away from home, or if you go to the other side of the country, humans in general are looking for that connected experience, and we're all doing very similar things. There are many more things that we have in common than otherwise.
And when you were speaking, especially on the tour with this gentleman, that your private tour for 3 hours,
Yeah.
are you speaking English? I know you said that you knew a little bit of Hindi. How was communicating with the locals and at the touristy spots?
Like I said, most everyone that I came into contact with, they at least knew a little bit of English. And if they didn't, there's Google Translate, which works really, really well. Even in Delhi, not everyone that I was in a cab with or Uber with spoke Hindi. It may have been Arabic.
Hmm.
So I would just pull out Google Translate and, have a couple of words here and there, and that's really all you need. Gesturing, or, they would be able to pull words. So no, my Hindi is not conversational at all.
Okay.
I know a few words. Dhanyavad means thank you, which is I use that one a lot.
That one's important to know. If you're going to know a couple phrases when you go to a country,
Yes.
please, thank you, bathroom. Those are important. You said that, at times you're from Middle Georgia. There's a lot of white people there, okay?
Yes.
And so now you're a minority in this other country. What did it feel like when you were very clearly the tourist in these areas?
I have to imagine that, just from speaking with my female friends, this is maybe what they feel like when they walk into a gym, or a place where they're in where there's a lot of males,
Mm,
and you feel it's just an odd feeling. I never really felt threatened, but I could tell that I stood out. I
mm,
was the sore thumb. I think if anything, some people may have led them to believe that, well, I know he's not from here, so I can ask him for something. I ran into that a lot in Dharamshala with a lot of the destitute that were on the streets, and there was an incredible amount of that, with people approaching me wanting. And have you ever seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? When he's walking through the village, and all of the children are around him and they're asking for alms or food, there were several scenes like that. And it was
mm,
very peculiar, only because they weren't doing it to anyone else. They were just walking down the street with me. And it's heartbreaking. Because I speak to several of the locals, they're like, no, you can't give them anything.
mm,
He's like, look, I'm sorry. He's like, it's just the way it is. He's like, I know it's awful. He's like, but you can't do it. He's like, you will get into more trouble by doing it than not. Just meaning that if you present that you have money, that you have something, you have a higher likelihood of getting mugged. It could turn into a bad situation. So
mhm.
I hated to see it. It was heartbreaking. And at the same time, so many experiences I had were just very surreal. And the Temple of Doom reference is really the only thing I can think of to compare
Mhm.
it to, which is everyone surrounding. I kind of liked being the odd man out, because situations like that force you to grow.
Mm,
They force you to accept, they force you to gain understanding, be patient, because maybe they don't speak your language and you need something, or you need to know something, and you have to approach these situations just in a very, very humble way, because
mhm.
you are a traveler, and maybe you aren't aware of their customs and their practices. And if you're going to insert yourself into a culture like that, you have to be very patient with everyone, as they were with me, because I didn't know. Everyone's very gracious and accepting of me being Southern white boy.
And tall, very tall.
Yeah, that didn't see that as much either. It's the culture is a little bit shorter there.
Hmm. And you did some great hiking.
So Dharamshala is kind of at the base of McLeod Ganj, and I sent you a few photos, and you'll see that there's a shot of Dharamshala, and I'm up in McLeod Ganj when I'm taking that photo. So it's you go up the mountain and the little switchbacks. That's where I stayed most of the time. I was in McLeod Ganj most of the time. That's where my Airbnb accommodations were. But once I rented a bike and was able just to go out and about, there's a Triund, Triund. Triund is one of the peaks there. And I wanted to hike it, but I think, if I remember correctly, I think you have to have a guide in order to do it. And it's one of those things I just didn't plan out well enough. But I did get to do some hiking while I was there. I made my way toward Triund, and I didn't get above 8,000 feet. So I didn't get any type of elevation sickness or anything. Nothing like, when you were in California, I'm sure on your hike.
It is different above 12,000. There was several hours where it was not fun. So I'm happy for you.
The hike it was toward the end of my trip because I'd been sick earlier on, and I just kind of ran out of time for the day hikes that I was wanting to do. But I did get one really good one in, and that was up toward Triund, and I missed the path. So at some point, and it was probably a half hour in, there was a trail it was a rock path. It was very well marked, but it was to the right, and I just didn't see it because it was a sharp right, almost behind me. Completely missed it. So the trail I see looks like a trail, and I continue on it. And about 10 minutes into this, I'm starting to realize this is a goat path. And what has happened is I am now on a cliff face, lying up against it, edging along, and I'm turning around. This was maybe a 30 to 40-minute ordeal where I'm along this face trying to determine, is it worth trying to go back down, because it looks more risky at this point. And I was headed toward a temple. At one point I could see the temple. Once I got against the face, I could no longer see it. So I'm ascending this, and I was able to get down on my hands and knees because there's lots of shrubbery coming out as well. And I'm crawling. It's maybe a few hundred yards that I'm crawling along this face until I reach a wall. It's about a 6-foot wall that I make my way over it, and I find the trail again. So that was probably the scariest thing I did while I was there. Just trying to get to that temple. And from there, I made it to the temple. I continued on the trail for a couple of more hours. When you're calculating, okay, it took me 2 hours to get up here, how long is it going to take me to get back down? And you're concerned about sunlight, daylight, how much time you got left. I really wish I would have continued, because I got down really quickly. When I came back down, I found the path again. I was like, oh, that's where I messed up. That's where I missed it, because the entire time I'm thinking as I'm ascending, there's no way this is the path people hike on. I didn't realize until much later that it was a goat path. I should have never been there. And there were probably people down below pointing, this like, this is the crazy tourist we're going to watch. He's going to be falling soon. Yeah.
So there's some wildlife stories that you've mentioned to me. One of them involves a spider.
Every evening when I'd go back to my room in McLeod Ganj, it was about 9 o'clock there, would be early morning in Georgia. So I would call my wife just to touch base, go over my day, because she was getting ready to go to work. There was a spider up in the top corner of my room. Now, this is spider, and I say spider, but I didn't know what type of spider it was. She's up in the corner, not bothering me. I'm not bothering her. I was like, you stay up there. We're good. After I got off the phone with my wife, I'm putting things away, getting ready to get in the bed, and I see something crawling across the floor. So I checked the corner, and sure enough, the spider is no longer there. I was like, okay. So I go to get like a piece of paper. There was a menu in my room. So I went to get the menu to scoop her up and take her outside. I go get the menu, and I turn around, and she's no longer there. Like, okay. I get down on the floor. I got my flashlight, and I got my head down to the floor, and I'm just scanning anything. Because, a spider, you would think this size would be raised up. Nowhere. And I was like, how can that spider move so fast? I was like, that's incredible, because I'm scanning the entire room. Nothing. So I get on my phone, I'm looking up. I was like, spider. It's called a huntsman spider. I only know about these in Australia, but found out that yes, they do have them in India as well. Not poisonous, not really there to harm me. I just didn't want to sleep with her.
Hmm.
So I go to bed and I wrap. I wrapped myself up in all the blankets, to where there's only just my face because I do not want the spider in the bed with me. I get up the next morning to take a shower. By the way, it's probably about 40 degrees every morning. And they have a heater. I was able to get them to bring a heater into the room. There's no heat to the place, but it was a heater only in the way that a donut is a tire. It didn't really do much for the room. And the bathroom has an open window. It's there's actually no window. It's just a hole. So it's 40 degrees in the bathroom while I'm taking a shower. And I kind of went for that whole experience. It was supposed to be a little bit of a roughing experience, a spiritual experience. And I didn't need all of those comforts. I get done with my shower, I grab my towel, and you do the little flip. What drops down between my legs on the floor? Yep. Yeah.
Did you scream? I would have screamed.
Yes, I did. I did. After the small heart attack, of course, the shower area is raised up, so she's in there. She can't get out of here. I mean, I guess she could. She probably
Yes, you
fallen.
can. She was in a corner, then she was on the bed. She can
Yeah.
go anywhere.
Look, I'm telling myself things at this point just to keep myself safe because I'm out. I'm out of the bathroom at this point. I go get the menu. I scoop her up. I do help her outside, but that was the small heart attack I had with the huntsman spider in my room. I saw several others while I was there after that. I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, they're pretty common here. But that was the largest one and probably the most scary experience I had. And she wasn't going to do anything but give me a heart attack. That's it.
I love that story for you. Actually, in Belize, one time I was stung by a scorpion because it was hiding in a towel. And I washed my hands, I went to dry my hands, and it must have been on the back side of the towel that was hanging or in the middle of it. And when I did that, it felt like being stabbed and lit on fire at the same time. I don't know that I know that that's what it feels like. That's what I can imagine it feels like. And it took an hour for that pain to subside. So, yes, whenever I go places like that, I check my shoes, I check the towels now.
I think on that and I was like, if you had just picked up the towel and started drying off and it would have, done one of those,
I'm literally
would I even
uncomfortable
be here?
thinking. I'm like,
Yeah. Would I even be here today? Who knows?
oh, you go for your peaceful experience and then you don't come back. For those listening who may have a trip in the future or will after this, what should they bring? And what did you bring that you were like, this was a total waste of space and I should have just left that at home?
Yeah, I really wish I would have taken another bag just for souvenirs.
Mm.
And I actually did buy a bag while I was there. Bags were super cheap. I was like, oh, this works out great. I was traveling in January. I had enough cold weather gear. I think I took too many clothes. I was
Mm.
there. But when you're traveling for 15, 16 days, for me, that's kind of hard to gauge. It's like, how many outfits do I need? How many times are going to be changing? There was no humidity. So honestly, there was a pair of jeans that I wore probably for half the time I was there. Just because you're not sweating, you're not smelly, and I didn't wash a single thing out while I was there. But there was some days when I was doing hiking that that stuff got packed in bags afterwards because it was sweaty. I took lots of clothing, and that was really it. I took a backpack because I wanted to be able, if there was something that I wanted to carry around, and I carried my backpack constantly, just so I didn't have to fill my pockets, or if I'm going to a shop, I can throw it in the pack. When I rented the motorcycle in Dharamshala, that was very important too, because I'm stopping, I'm getting water from a little shop, or I'm getting a souvenir from this place. Always have a backpack. That was probably the key to the trip for me, is that I had it all the time.
Is there anything that you haven't mentioned yet that you would love the people to know?
Just the people that I met overall, so incredibly friendly. Miss Diane, she was from Australia. She was there. I think she said she was spending 5 months, but she was a Buddhist, and she said she's stayed in India, been to India to visit 5 times. So she really enjoys that. And I get why she was there, because she said as much as the feeling of McLeod Ganj and His Holiness's temple, the feeling that you get while you're there, she said is magnified 100-fold when he's actually in town. And she's like, the town is actually electric when he's there. Just the energy of everyone there. I would love to go back. I told my wife that I would love for her to go just to experience that, because it was incredible.
And you said that there's another part in the southern area of India that you would go back to.
There was Jaipur. Had a lot of tours when I was looking at different tours of things to do, but it was a couple hours away. I wanted to ride an elephant in India.
Mm.
I just felt like that would have been great. So finding tours that actually did that in an ethical way
Mm.
was a bit of a challenge, but I found a few. But getting down to Jaipur was like the closest one I found that I felt like would be a safe one to take. And Mumbai, there was just, India is huge. I mean, I was in the Himalayas and I was still over 1,000 miles from Mount Everest. So because Nepal
I was gonna say Nepal.
is right there tucked in north of India, but I was still quite a ways because the country is just enormous.
When you go back, if you go back, besides where you would go, what else would you do differently with the next trip?
Certainly better planning. As good as the trip was, looking back on it, a lot of things were very impulsive. And I feel like when you don't know a lot about a place, sometimes it can be difficult to plan.
Mhm.
So what I learned about the country while I was there, the different things that I would like to do, like going to Jaipur or the different cities, and the people I talked to, I was like, well, you need to go see this, you need to go do this. Like, great, I'll have to do it on my next trip. Like, yeah, you need to come, spend a couple of months. And I was like, that's the goal. I would love to go back. The experience in Dharamshala, and I've told my wife this because I did travel alone on this. Don't be afraid to travel alone. The people were very welcoming, gracious, and kind. Be aware of your surroundings, but that's any large city you go to. That's has nothing to do with where I was traveling to.
That's Atlanta.
Yes, be open to very different experiences to what we have here. There's a level of poverty there that we seldom can even imagine here in the US. That there are people living in slums and tin shacks. And I know you see this in Latin America and other places that you travel. And I know that we have some of that here, but oftentimes there are programs to be able to help those people. There, it didn't seem like that there was help being offered to a lot of those. They were just kind of on their own. And the sadness was that, seemingly some of them had kind of accepted that fate, that there was really no way out for them. That's how they lived. But in that, there seemed to still be joy. There still seemed to be happiness. Of everyone's still looking for the same human experience that we all look for. The airports were one of the few places that I was able to trade money,
Mm.
but I had a debit card and there were ATMs everywhere, and I was able to withdraw rupees as I needed them.
In general, just summarizing the trip, what was the absolute highlight favorite part?
There was one experience when I was driving my motorcycle back to my Airbnb, which the first day of the motorcycle was absolute terror, just considering the traffic. But after the first day, it was completely fine. You got used to it. But there was one night I was heading back to my Airbnb, and my Airbnb was off a little dirt road, a bumpy dirt road. And I'm traveling down the dirt road, and you have a little small light, and I see all these eyes spread about. And as I'm approaching and I'm slowing down, and I can hear what's going on. I hear the bleats of hundreds of goats. So this evening, I'm traveling back, and there's this herder who's herding his hundreds of goats back to another pasture, another field in the middle of the road. And I couldn't get to my camera. I was like, I could not get to my phone. I was like, this is something I'm just going to have to keep, because I'm not going to have a visual representation of it. So it's just going to be the story that I'm going to be able to tell. So just that experience kind of encapsulated the entire trip there. I was like, because the place was so incredibly cool. There's so much that I took away that I feel like is intangible, that is just things that I get to carry with me.
Mm.
And I think a lot of trips like this, there's going to be those things that just the peace of it all. And there's different types of peace. People can have peace on their own. I like being surrounded with people. Some people like to be by themselves a lot. I can find solace and peace in multiple environments. And I feel like in Delhi, when I was walking the streets at night, there's a high level of anonymity. No one knows me, but I still get to immerse myself into what's going on. And I don't have to be concerned about what demands are being made because no one knows me. No one's asking anything of me. I just get to experience this. So you have all of these different types of peace that I was able to experience while I was there.
Well, that's it for Brad's trip to India. Have you been? What are your favorite parts? Find me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and send me a message. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on The Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.